All right, welcome back to Michelle and Mickey's Performance Playbook. And today we're going to tackle our part 3 of our little mini series. This one is training to race. And so we've covered learning to train, and now we're going to chat about training to race. So here's a little backstory. Michelle, I know before we started recording, you remember Chucky V, right? And learned, his blogs, fantastic. Learned a ton from Chucky V. And so short backstory is one of my athletes has a little bit of a head cold, and I was searching what was the recipe, the original proportions for Chucky V's tea, which I still actually couldn't find, but it's basically hot water, apple cider vinegar, a little bit of some lemon and some honey, basically just enough to cut the punch in the mouth that you get from this tea. But if you're feeling under the weather, it's a great, vitamin C, and apple cider vinegar, really good for digestion. And so whenever I feel like I'm getting a cold, I will always make this Chucky V tea. And I've been doing this for years. And so I was recommending this to my athlete. Well, of course, when you start diving down into the Wayback Machine of blogs, I came across a linked blog to Alan Couzens. And this was written in 2008. And the title of the blog here is The Ultimate Success Formula. And it was written, in January of 2008. But within this article, which is in and of itself gold, for those of you that don't know, Alan Couzens is also a fantastic coach. But he says here in his in this blog post, type A age group athletes typically let their goals for the season dictate their rate of improvement rather than letting their rate of improvement dictate their seasonal goals. And it's underlined in his blog. And I came across this yesterday as I was kind of responding to my athletes and writing schedules. And I was like, oh my gosh, and we're going to talk about this exact thing today again in 2026. So I just, wanted to kick it off with that little backstory of going into the Wayback Machine and finding linked blogs. And I often think I'm only going to spend 5 minutes on this endeavor of looking for what I'm looking for. And then I get on old blog posts and I'm like, oh man, this is gold. This is so great. I'm going to relearn whatever this is.
Mhm.
So yeah, today
I
we're going, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think I read, like, back in the day, every single blog post that Chucky V ever wrote.
Yeah.
Because, what I mean, like,
Yeah.
after I found his blogs, and it was like I read them when he wrote them,
It's
but all of them were such gold that I would find myself going back and reading, like, in his archives and reading, like, what did he write, like, before I found him. And yeah, I like his something about his style and his approach and his no
so good.
nonsense. And, he was really into, like, working hard, but also like doing it the smart way and like not too hard and like managing yourself appropriately and not being dumb. I appreciated his approach. Fun fact, I don't know if you know this about me. I hired Alan Couzens to coach me for a short period. Did you know that?
I did
Did
not
I tell
know
you
that.
that?
I know you, no. Yeah.
Okay, so listen, in reading Alan, I really appreciate like all that Alan has written. And I kind of thought like, oh, this is going to be gold, right? So like have him coach me. It was the least inspired I have ever been in my life as far as like
Mm,
training for a triathlon.
okay.
It was just absolutely
Okay.
horrible. And it precipitated my like quitting racing.
I did not know this. I did not know this. This was
I
like
mean, to
later in
talk
your
about a
career.
fun
Yeah.
story. So this,
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been like in 21, maybe. But part of it, I mean, to be fair, it wasn't really Alan. It was more Alan's AI. So like Alan was getting into AI coaching and he was using HRV guided training. And it was like
Mhm.
so I was learning about HRV. I was listening to Marco Altini and like trying to understand all of that. And Alan was trying to come up with like AI algorithms and like a
Mhm.
training programs where like you would wake up in the morning and so they were going to be very individualized because you would put your race in, like here's your A race, like what you want to do and however many weeks away it was. And then you could tell the AI different things about like, your training level and your schedule and like what was available for you and blah blah blah. But you had to every morning put in your resting heart rate and your HRV and like just basically you had to give this program like a whole bunch of your metrics every morning. And then you would and then it would spit out at you what kind of training you should do that day, like based on your state. And like all of that sounded like great. But the problem was, I think, so there were a couple things going on at the time. Like I had some like underlying baseline health issues that I was really trying to ignore. And you know how like when your brain is ignoring the thing, but like your body's not ignoring the thing. And so
Right.
when I would have like if I was giving my resting heart rate and giving my HRV, um, it would basically be like, you need to not be training. And I'm like, no, I
Right.
definitely want to be
Okay.
training.
Right. Right.
So
Right. Right. Yeah.
and so I was like battling with this computer, and I found myself over time. And this is really, it was a fascinating experiment for me, really, to like try to, because like what I found is like, I'm trying to manipulate this stupid computer algorithm so that it would let me train. Right. So, I mean, there were times where I was like, I would lie about my HRV at times, or like I would fudge my
Just give
resting
me
heart
the
rate. 'Cause I'm
training.
like,
Yeah.
just let
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
train, like I want to train. And then I found out too, and I approached Alan with this because he had not trained his algorithm to understand women and women's cycles and like women's hormonal, like how it goes. And like I had been wearing the Aura ring for long enough, and like that's where I was getting, the HRV and all that, all the data that I was importing, every morning. And it was like I could tell that, in right before my period would come, my HRV would be in the gutter, my resting heart rate would be higher, my core body temperature was higher, right? Like all the things that were indicating that, your period's going to start next week. But the problem was this program wasn't actually writing me the training day by day. It was writing it week by week. And so it was taking like an
Mm. Yeah.
overall, like how last week went, what the numbers were, and then it would write Monday to Friday again based on, everything, my inputs and all that. But what I was finding is that month after month, what I knew about myself is that like, yeah, the week before my period starts, like I feel like ass, right? Like I don't feel good. I can't hit power on the bike. I'm not motivated. I cry a lot. Like it's bad. I don't have heat tolerance. But then like the day that my period started, hormones would all shift and I'd be like, I'm on now. And I would know, I mean,
Mm.
I'd been watching that for 8 years already. So like I knew. And I would get so frustrated because this algorithm would look and see that, like, well, last week, your resting heart rate
Right.
was higher and your HRV was lower. And so then it would give me like a rest week during the first week of my cycle.
Which
And
is
I'm
when
like,
you want to
this is the
train
time
hard.
when I
Yeah.
should be going. You know what I mean? Like, the rest week should be like
The week
that.
before. Yeah.
The high hormone week should be the rest week because, like, I'm not in a good place anyway. Yeah. So, and I gave him that feedback. I was like, you need to train your algorithm to understand women and how, like, a woman's cycle works and to not give me a rest week, when I'm actually
Hmm.
going to be good and on fire. Yeah, and I think the problem was, I think the algorithm was largely his, all the workouts were largely his, right? I think he wrote them all in and then he basically told the computer program, like, when to assign them based on like whatever inputs he put in. So it wasn't super generic. I mean, it was as personalized as I think it could be with a knowledgeable coach, with an athlete inputting their data and like using AI. So like in theory, it should have been a really good idea. And in practice, I was like, I hate this so much. I don't even
Yeah.
I did it for like maybe 3 or 4 months. And then I was like, I was so bored by the workouts because the same ones would pop up, like there
Yeah.
was like no creativity there, which I don't know. I mean, I don't need to be like entertained by my training. I mean, look, I swam today. I did 15 200s in the pool. Like I do not need but what I need to not do is 15 200s every Monday.
Right. Right. Right.
Right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I
Yeah.
don't mind boring workouts, but like I want to like mix up the boringness of the workouts, if
Well,
you will.
yeah.
And so yeah, I
The
totally
brain.
quit. Like
Yeah.
after that, I was like, and then he wrote back and he was kind of a jerk about it too, because he was like, I had a feeling you weren't gonna last or something, right? And it was just like, I'm
Please. Oh,
so experienced at this. Like, I wanted to see how AI did it, and it gave me confidence that like an AI computer for most people. I mean, maybe for some, there might be some athletes that do really well
mhm.
with like following an AI training program, but I suspect that the vast majority of athletes, like when they are looking for a coach athlete relationship, like they're looking for that human interaction, right? Like not trying to manipulate a computer program to get the kind of training that they want.
Well,
And
even if they,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, even if they think, because I could think of some athletes that I know that I've worked with that might say, well, really into AI. And they're like, oh, yeah, AI is going to be
Hmm.
better than a human,
Hmm.
right? Computers are
Hmm.
smarter than humans. But what I think they also don't maybe give enough credit to, or they don't even recognize in themselves, is that, yeah, 90% of like coaching is actually the human interaction and trying to help people problem solve, help people's, help them grow emotionally, mentally, in their confidence. And, I don't think yet that that a lot of people, maybe some people would, I don't know, entrust that relationship to AI. I mean, it is probably true that some people are becoming they're okay with that, right? They're a lot. They are. I don't know. They're allowing the AI substitute for a human coach, and but I think you're right. Like in the vast majority of people looking for coaching, they're looking for a human component, right, to
Hmm.
help guide them
Hmm.
not only in the like specific sessions, the metrics, the like getting better, the improvement in that respect, but in also the I don't know what else to say, like just building confidence, right? Or
Yeah.
helping them understand, right? Like, okay, you missed that session. Is it going to derail your race or not? Right? Like,
Yeah.
and so and sometimes the computer's going to say, well, it is going to derail your race, so therefore you should not do your race. And maybe coaches should say that too more often because, right? Like, anyways, which
Oh,
brings us back to the topic at hand, which is training.
yeah, Thomas, like what
Oh,
we're
it's all good.
actually
I
talking
love it.
about here is like training
I
the
love
race.
it.
Yeah. So
I
like in the
love it.
big picture, if we go, like I was thinking about this morning, while I was swimming, the topic of the day. And I was like, okay, how would I differentiate like these phases? Because here's the thing, like I was having a great swim this morning. Like it was the best swim I've had in 6 months. Like
Good.
it's
Yeah.
the best swim I've had in a long time. I just felt like smooth and like I was moving like butter and I was like in control and my splits were quicker than what I expected them to be. And it was all just like, oh wow, like this is great. So in the moment, I revamped. Like I decided I didn't have a main set when I started, but I like made it up as I went because I was like right from the first hook, I'm like I feel really good. I should take advantage, of this day and like do something, like reasonable quality or that I think I'm going to get like a benefit from while I was doing it. And so it made me think about this sort of like training to race or training to win phase because like the workout that I did today, it felt like a training to win kind of workout, right? Like because it was like the paces I was holding on the rest I was holding it on and the way I was executing it, the consistency of it, the way my brain was functioning like while I was
Hmm.
doing it like it was all so like steady and controlled and confident. And like, it was like, this is the kind of session that you would be
Yeah.
like, I am ready to race in the water. Right. Like for an ocean swim or something like that. Right. But like, that's not, it's very different. Like the learning to train phase that you would never do the workout I just did. Right. Maybe in the training to train phase. So if we go back to just like recap from my perspective, the learning to train phase is like examining your daily life, your schedule, or like ability to hold a consistent routine, right? Like that's what you're really
Hmm.
trying to do, and you're
Hmm.
trying to learn about like what is my capacity here, like what
Hmm.
is and what feels like enough right now, what is too much right now, how do I need to fuel, and you're really just like learning how to manage like training every day. And then when you get to the training to train phase, that's when you're thinking like there's harder workouts that are coming. I want to be prepared to do some big hard race, at an effort level that I'm proud of later. And so I need to expand my capacity. And so the way that I'm looking at like training to train is I'm going to expand my capacity. And what that means is sometimes training tired, right? Like drag your ass up off the couch and like go get the training in like when you're training to train because like your whole goal is to expand your capacity. So like there will be times when you're dragging ass and you need to like go do the work anyway. I mean, in a smart way, obviously, like there will be times like as we've talked about, like nauseum when
Right.
to not train. But as long as you're sleeping and you're eating right and all that, then like
Hmm.
your training to train phase can be like pretty big and meaty. And for a lot of people, it's a phase that they really like. Like if you like to train, you like the training to train phase. And then when
Hmm.
you get to the like a training to race or training to win phase, I'm curious about your thoughts on this because this is what I was coming up with this morning. In my mind, this phase lasts 6 to 8 weeks at a time,
Hmm.
right? And depending on how you've like worked out your schedule, but just assuming that you
Hmm.
have like an A race that you're doing. So this would be like in the last 6 to 8 weeks leading into that big race your ability to do the training in this phase will be largely dependent on how well the training to train phase went, right? Like
Hmm.
how much did you train? How consistent were you? Like how much did you learn about yourself? How much were you paying attention all along? And then the differentiators to me are a couple things. Number one, in training to win, you're going to be, it's all about I can't say this word, specificity. Is that the
Specificity.
word?
Specificity. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I swear I'm not, I cannot like not say that word. You get very specific about what you're doing, right? So now it's like, if you're a triathlete, you're riding your TT bike, not your road bike, right? Like you need to be spending time in your aero bars, like you're training your neck to, like hold power, like in aero. You're ideally being able to like get outside more than being on the trainer. Like you're not just trying to build fitness, you're trying to build like race specific capacity, or like whatever it is that you need specifically for that race. And like most of the races that we are doing are not online, they're outside. So it's like in there, a lot of the swims are going to be like in open water. So if you have access to open water, it'd be like, this is when you're going to take your pool swimming and translate it to like a lake or an ocean, at least at times, because like that's specific to the race that you're going to be doing, right? That's when you might put a wetsuit on to, like, if your race is going to be wetsuit, like you're thinking about the very specific demands of the race that you're going to do, and you start arranging your training so it's specific to that, right? And then the second piece would be you start taking recovery like way more seriously, because you want to be very much on for your specific like key workouts in the training to win phase. We're going to cut out some of the excess, like, to me, in a training to win phase, training to race phase, you start cutting, your volume might be a little bit lower than like the
Mm,
training to train phase might have the highest volume. But like in the last 6 to 8 weeks before your race, your total volume might come down. But the key workouts, which you might do twice a week, 2 or 3 times a week total,
mhm,
like of the 7 days, like where you're really like working at hitting race intensities, hitting race distances, maybe like however you're working out the specificness of your training. And then in between, you're recovering in a way, and you're prioritizing recovery so that like the key days on Wednesday, and you're going to be on Wednesday so that you can do it really well, right? And then the third piece, and we can go back and how do you say, revisit each of these concepts individually. But the third piece for me then is thinking about your mental state, your emotional state, like the visualization piece of it, like
yeah,
understanding where your head needs to be, like the
mhm,
difference between like confidence and arrogance, like
mhm,
going into the race knowing that like you can do it, but also it's going to be challenging to do, like what kind of headspace, and you start cultivating that headspace during this
mhm,
training to win phase. So like
yeah,
that's sort of what I'm thinking of largely about, is like the last 6 to 8 weeks before your A race, how does training change? And that's it for me. So now I just
yeah.
talked a lot. So you go.
No, no, I agree, I agree. I would add in also, with the exception of athletes that struggle with race nutrition, you're also dialing in your race nutrition.
Yes.
And
Yes,
so,
yes.
for athletes that don't struggle with race nutrition, or their short races, maybe it's less important, but I think you still spending a little bit of time, in that 6 to 8 weeks prior to your A race, making sure that what worked for you in the past still works for you. If it's an athlete though that struggles with race nutrition, that phase, like really, we never go out of that phase, right? Like we're always trying to solve what is going to work for your long rides. So yeah, so I think with the exception of yeah, I would add in, you're also really prioritizing race nutrition as well as fueling in general. I completely agree. Like you're dialing in your recovery so that you can be on point. I often refer to it as like it's go time, right? I would say for it sort of depends on the athlete and what they're training for. I might extend ideally, and this is where we're going to get into it because I think that's an ideal situation, right?
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
you want
yeah,
six to
yeah.
eight weeks. I would
Mhm.
say ideally I would actually extend it to maybe even 12 weeks of race specificity, only if I tend to diverge a little bit, I think, in how I apply tapers sometimes and recovery weeks. Like I do, if we can get the a little longer race specific block, we can take a little bit of downtime, like mental reset breaks, weeks, instead of trying to have athletes be on, for 6 to 8 weeks, which tends to can be overwhelming for some athletes that
Mhm.
have stressful work life situations, or whatever they have. And so that just it's not that I want more work done. It's like it just gives us a little more time to then rest, as well as maybe do an early taper and then a little bit of a, what is it, where I look, a tiny bit of intensity block, but not like well over and above like whatever the race specific intensities they are looking to hone in on. So yeah, I completely agree with those little caveats of what we really tend to focus in on. But those are ideal, right?
Yeah.
And what I
Yes, that
see in
is true.
practice is very different because I'm sometimes getting athletes coming to me within 12 weeks and saying, "Oh, by the way, I've got a
Mhm.
marathon. Will you
Yeah.
get me ready in
Mhm.
12 weeks?" Right? We haven't done
Yeah.
the volume. We haven't done,
Mhm.
and by the way, I want to break 4 hours, or I want to
Yeah. I've literally
whatever.
just had that. I like I just had that scenario from 2 different athletes.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
like,
I'm not
"Okay."
surprised, right? So, and I also say I try hard to not have athletes think about their race goals until we get into those blocks, right? Like I often,
Hmm.
well, and I'm probably annoying to my athletes. It's like, they want to talk about paces or is my easy run too slow? This and I'm like, I don't care. Like we're building in the training to train, which ideally is most of the year. We're not thinking about anything. Right. I mean, we're keeping it in the back of our minds, right? Like, but we're not thinking, oh, can I hold 9-minute pace? Can I hold 8-minute pace? Can I hold this power? Can I like we don't even talk about that until we get to more race specific work. And then, it's like, okay, what's your goals? But then what's reality? And we start to build in sessions that like will think about help us develop little bit of a stretch goal for the race, but nothing that's like for some athletes, it's just well beyond, I think, the capacity, all right, or what they
Hmm.
are like based on how their training to train build went, that what they can hold. And that's sometimes tough, right, to come to those realizations. But it's going to give you a better race, right, than having these goals that are wildly beyond the current capacity or capability, right, and something to
Hmm.
work into down the road. So, anyways,
You might find
but yeah.
athletes that surprise themselves too. And like I've seen it, I had two athletes this weekend that went over to Maui to like ride up Haleakala.
Oh yeah.
And just more
Nice.
like it wasn't a race, it was just like a training camp kind of thing, but like with a big group that, went over there. And they'd both been training. I did not train them specifically for that. I mean, like we did a little bit, right? We just like go out and like do more climbing rides, we increase like ride volume and that kind of thing. But, it wasn't like it was here's this big like, a race focus or anything like that. It was just more like develop the capacity to be able to do it. But like even off of the base training that they did, they
Oh
both
yeah.
they both did great and like reported like feeling better, feeling stronger. I mean, like one of them, I mean, that goes up to 10,000 feet. And
Yeah,
one
it's
of
a
them
big
is
ride. Yeah.
reporting like she was like, I was nasal breathing at the top. Like at 10,000 feet,
Nice.
she's been climbing for
Yeah.
like 5 hours and she's nasal breathing at 10,000 feet. And I'm like, so, and I'm
Great.
trying to point out to her to help her. She's like, this is an athlete that struggles with confidence sometimes. And I think commonly she'll feel like she should be training harder than she is training her. And I get that a lot, actually. And you probably do too. The athletes, they think they need to be training harder than what
Oh
I'm
yeah.
prescribing for them. And like, I'm constantly going like, no, you don't. Like, you have to like, do this and keep doing this and like do it again tomorrow and do it again tomorrow and do it again the next week and like keep going and
Hmm.
like, and we're just building this giant capacity for you. And even if you haven't done anything like really specific, you can
You can,
still
yeah.
sometimes just go execute and surprise yourself. And key component to that might be that, like, I would say, because it wasn't a race and it was just a
Right.
training weekend, that neither of them would have put a ton of pressure on themselves to like perform
Yep.
in any way. It was just like, I hope I can make it to the top. And then they just pleasantly surprised themselves. They're both like, I felt great. It was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
had the best day, like climbing
Yeah.
all day and it's beautiful up there. The road's really nice. And it like every time I have that experience as a coach, when an athlete does that, it reminds me like, don't
Yeah.
get greedy, don't rush the process, don't like it
Hmm.
does come, if you put
Yeah.
the work in and like do it consistently, you do not have to prove to yourself every single
Yep.
week that you are race ready. Sometimes you
Right.
can just go do it.
Yeah.
If you
I've,
haven't
yeah.
pushed and the ones I would say the caveat to that, and maybe you've had this experience too, you've had the athletes that resist going as easy as they should be going in the
Yep.
base period, right? And so they're always just pushing like a little bit harder than they should be, or maybe like a
Quite a
lot,
bit
but
more
like
than they, yeah.
harder than
Yeah.
they should be. And then when those athletes go to race or go do the big thing, they don't
Yep.
show the big
No.
surprise improvement that the athletes who were diligent and persistent and patient
Yep.
showed.
Yeah.
And that
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
like it just is a real thing, so it's
Yeah.
like be
Yeah.
as patient as you can possibly be like in that first phase, because then you'll find that when you go to push harder, it's there for you. You don't have
Yeah.
to prove it all the time if you can like
Absolutely.
develop that confidence. That
Yeah,
part's
there's
hard.
there's multiple. I think that's a mental. I think you have the reserves to dig deeper when you have given yourself more space to go easy and lighter and do what your body maybe needs on the day, which might be even easier than the coaches prescribed, right?
Hmm.
But then I think also I've also believe in low zone 1, zone 2 training, as we've talked about in other podcasts. Like a lot of people consider like what they consider zone 2 is actually if you want to test them in whatever protocol you want to use, VO2 max, lactate, metabolic efficiency, the top test, whatever you want to, however you want to test them, their zone 2 is zone 3, right? And
Or
sometimes even
low
high
for
zone 3 or low 4. Yeah. I mean, I will commonly see people say, "Oh, I'm riding easy and my pace is 9:30, but my threshold, like if I ask them to go out and do a 10K, which is for a lot of people threshold, it would be maybe 9:15." So there's something like not adding up here. Either we need to, yeah, well, this is a different topic, but it's
Yeah.
kind of related because I think
Because you wouldn't
it's
enter a train to race phase, right? If you were
right.
still like you're at a place where it's like, um, yeah, I mean, like if your heart rate's 155 and you're running 13-minute pace, like you're probably not in like a train to race. Like you haven't developed that fitness yet. And so like that athlete is going to want to like go faster, right?
Mhm.
But like your heart rate's still 155 at that,
Right,
like,
right. Unless you're in your maybe 60s
well,
or
unless you're
early
yeah,
70s.
like, but no,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
talking like,
But
you're a 40 or
yeah,
50-year-old, you know what I
right,
mean? Your heart rate's
right.
that high. Like to me, what that tells me is that there's something baseline going on underneath.
Yes.
Like, right, there's
Yeah.
stress somewhere. Like there's stress in a relationship, there's stress at work, there's
Yeah.
not sleeping, you're not eating. Like there's something else going on
Yes. Yeah.
when that combination of like
Mhm.
pace and heart rate is happening. And
Yeah.
and in and of, and that's what Alan would talk about too, about like your lifestyle, and you want to go do the things that you want to do, but if you don't have the lifestyle that is supporting
Mhm.
your ability to recover, like the ability to do it and the ability to recover from it, and that like in theory is what you should be learning during the train to train phase,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we get folks, right, to embrace this? Because it's I would say at this point systemic that even my athletes that, like, for example, I was just having a conversation with someone that they were thinking that, like, their life is very stressful. They're feeling like they're not able to get the sessions in and they don't have any big goals. So they were like, well, maybe I'll just take a break, from coaching, which I'm not opposed to. I did push back a bit. I said, look, if you are in a good place and you're rolling along and you're consistently training and you're like, I just don't have anything on the radar and I don't feel like I can learn anything or I don't need your support, then, step away. Like, they're not like, it's what I want to work with people that want to work with me and learn from me. But in this situation, it was more that they didn't have a big race on the schedule, so they were like, "Well, I'm not really sure," and life was hectic, so they weren't sure that, I'm trying to put myself in the athlete's shoes. What I suggested is that, you're in the training, and I should say this athlete's also coming off pretty major injury and surgery. So we're in the training to train phase, right? Or we're in the learning to train phase with your job situation, career, kids, right? Like, what can we get in? You don't need to have a race. I would prefer you not have a race on the schedule, is what I told this
Yeah.
athlete. Because honestly, like, it would just add more stress to your life that you don't need to try to accommodate something that you may not even have the capability, capacity to do right now, or even in 6 months if we can't get consistent training in. So and they stayed on. They're like, "Oh, thank you for calling me out," on my because they also admitted, like, if they stepped away, they're a type of athlete that would quickly let everything else overwhelm them,
Yep.
their family,
Most
their
most
work, their
athletes
yeah,
do. Like they think
and
they're
they
like,
would
"Oh, this is just, I'll do it all myself anyway." And then like the second that they don't have someone who's like just at least watching or seeing if you're doing it or not, it's so easy to start skipping. I would say the same thing with an AI coach, right? Like
yeah,
the computer
yeah,
doesn't care
right.
at
They
all,
don't
like if
care.
you do
Yeah,
the workout or not. And so like it's like you don't have somebody holding you accountable. The vast majority of athletes will like they'll exercise 3 times a week is what they'll revert to.
yeah, yeah. If that, I've seen some that are not
Like with
even
all
at
the
that.
best
So
intentions. Yeah.
yeah, but trying to get athletes, and I know because I think I don't know the statistics, so I don't know what your feeling would be on this in terms of the people that love to train, right? Like, I love to train. I raced pretty infrequently for the most part. I think I have maybe one or two other athletes that are in that camp, but even my athletes that I have kind of tried to pull them over to the dark side of, like, train to train, get your stuff, get your life together, get consistency in. Like, they still, I think, are always have this like little bird on the shoulder, right? Saying, well, but why? But what are you training for? But you've got a race, blah, blah. And so the races are still the driver, right? Of why they're doing the thing. So yeah, I mean, so I understand that I think a lot of people, especially age group, well, maybe even pros too, right? They are training only because they love to race, right? And so it's hard to remove that. as a overriding like factor of how you approach even your day to day, even your day to day sessions. If you can't let that go, it's like every session is a am I getting better? Am I getting worse? Am I getting, because I have this A race in 6 months or 10 months or next year, or whatever it might be. I mean, that's ideal because a lot of times it's actually 3 months away. And so there is more of a, we're trying to combine volume, we're trying to combine race specificity, we're trying to combine, lots of things here, dialing in the race nutrition, right? Because they've only got 12 weeks and kind of not coming off the couch completely, but we didn't do training to train, and we are really trying to do something many times on top of an already pretty stressful life, right, to meet their goals. So I don't know. I'm trying to. My question was, how do you get people to really embrace the training to train? And have you been successful there, right, with your athletes? Can you get them into that mindset shift, right?
Yeah, it's a good question because I would say that I have a fair amount of athletes. I'd probably half of my athletes are like, I call them like lifers, like they're like the lifestyle athletes, meaning that like they just, they, I think they'd like to have me on board because at this point I know them really well. If we've been working together for however long, and I know their lifestyle, I know their job, I know their stress levels. And they're pretty happy to train. And then like when a race comes up, they're like, and so what I do with a lot of athletes is like, we'll just keep you in a place where you're feeling pretty good, you're healthy, right? Like I'm like, we're training
Mhm.
for life. You're training to like to stay healthy for life, and like training becomes like a stress outlet for some. It's a habit, it's
Mhm.
a routine. It can be social, it can be the group thing that you're doing. Like what it serves a lot of purposes, like other than racing. And I think that like many in my crew figured that out during COVID, like when the races went away and
Mhm.
they just stayed on and like kept training. And a lot of us like learned a valuable lesson that way. And so those athletes, the mindset that I take when I'm like programming for them each week is along the lines of like, let's keep you at a reasonable baseline level so that if
Mhm.
a race comes up in the next like 8 to 12 weeks and you're like, hey, that looks really interesting, that you're not that far off. And then all we have to do is be like, okay, what's specific
Yeah.
then about that race? Like, what are the demands of the race? Is it an elevation? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be hilly? Is it going to be like, whatever the thing is? And then we just dial in more like specific to
Right.
that. And then they go do it and there's success there. And like that turns out to
Yeah.
be pretty well. And like I have a lot of athletes that are like, I don't know what's next, but just like, like let's just keep me in shape. And when the race comes up, then we'll do it. I talked to an athlete this weekend who is fascinating. She's not in a place where she's training consistently. And there are a lot of valid reasons for that, right? Like, so she's got
Mhm.
health issues and like there's mental stuff and there's work stuff and there's drama that like it's just there's a lot. And so she has not been training consistently. She knows she's not training consistently. Her go-to, I mean, she told me this
Mhm.
weekend, like, I feel like I just need to sign up for an Ironman because they're like, she
I
goes, it's so
know.
weird. It's so weird to not have an Ironman on my schedule. And I'm like, you haven't ridden your bike in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like you have a bike trainer set up in your house and like you look at it every day and you choose to not get on it. And I'm like I think that signing up for an Ironman right now is likely to end up being a waste of $1,000 and an extra stressor on you that is not going to be helpful, right? And so it really is like largely up to the athlete to figure out what the underlying, things are that are preventing them from training consistently. Because like, I mean, and this was a thing that I remember like a long time ago, like back in my heyday, like when I was blogging and I was like doing 3 Ironmans a year or whatever, training a lot. I remember how much I really enjoyed riding my bike.
Mhm.
And when my schedule would come through every week and there was 12 hours of riding on the schedule, like I would salivate. I'd be like, this is great. Like I want to ride my bike. Like I 5 hour bike ride, great. Like, I mean, I woke up excited to do it. Like I can't wait to do
Yeah.
this. And I remember reading like other blogs of people who were training for an Ironman and they would just bitch endlessly about
Yeah.
long rides. Be
Yeah.
like, "Ugh, the long ride, like I
Yeah.
hate the long ride, blah, 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 whatever."
Don't do
And I'm
Iron
like,
Man.
like,
Sorry.
yeah, I'm like, hey, look, newsflash. Here's newsflash. You don't have to do an Ironman. You really don't.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to prove anything to yourself or to
Yeah.
anyone else. Like there's
Right.
no mandate to do an Ironman. You don't have to do one to be a worthy person. Like nothing, none of that.
Right.
And by the way, if you don't love riding your bike, don't enter an Ironman. And I wrote
Yeah.
like a whole blog
Right.
on that. Like just don't enter one if you don't love riding your bike. Like, it's not going to go well anyway. Like, you're going to get to Ironman, and the Ironman's not going to go well if you don't love riding your bike. Like, genuinely from inside your heart, love riding your bike in a way that's going to make you want to train. You want to ride it more because you enjoy it. You think it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And from that place, then you're going to want to train. And then you're on this like positive upward spiral, because the more you train, the better you feel. Then the better you feel, the more fun it is. And the more fun it is, the more you want to train. And then you train more, and then it's right. And you're like on
Yeah.
this upward
Yeah.
spiral. This athlete is on like this downward spiral
Yeah.
where she's feeling like crappy in her body. She's like, I've gained weight. I don't feel good. So like she's at a point where like physically getting on a bike and riding doesn't feel good. So she looks at the bike and she doesn't want to do it. So she skips it, and she like will go out and eat ice cream or something instead, right? To like eat the feelings, which we all like, we've all been
Of
there. And so as
course.
I say
Yeah.
this, not in judgment, like she would not even be mad. She'd be like, you're right. Like this is what we had this very
Mhm.
like heart to heart this weekend. And it was like, it's so hard to snap out of that downward
It
spiral,
is. It is.
right?
Yeah.
But like at some point, there's a level of acceptance. Like it's like you accept where you are right now.
Hmm.
You understand that the only way to get out is through, right? So you're gonna have to like, if you have ideas of wanting to be at a fitness level that you are not currently at, only way to get there is to suffer through the shitty training that is required in order to start feeling good. And I think I wrote another blog post about this another time too. It's like you like it's the upward training spiral where like when you're not training enough and training feels shitty, so then you don't want to train, so you skip training, which means you're not training enough,
Yeah.
which means that like training feels shitty, right? And you're just like,
Right.
this is bad. And at some point then you have to suck it up. For the length of that time depends on the athlete, right? So like if you've been doing it for a really long time and you just took a break because you were sick or injured or traveling or whatever, it could just be 2 weeks and you're good, right? You're gonna be back on track. But if it's been a long time since you've been consistent, like you like the mental framing to do for like this to get back to the point where training starts feeling good again, it has to be like, yep, this isn't going to feel good for a while, but I know that if I keep doing it, eventually it's going to start getting better. And
Yeah.
if you can like just get through that crappy part, then eventually you and maybe it's 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I mean, and I get swimmers like this at Masters that'll come in, right? I mean, the most common story we have at Masters is like 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old swimmer who used to swim, swam in high school, swam in college, haven't swam for 4 years, 6 years, a decade, whatever, you
Whatever.
know.
Yeah.
And I'm here. And so it's like they know what to do, they know how to do it. They just haven't been doing it. And like every time I just do my very best to just, I smile with them. I tell them, this is going to suck. It's going to absolutely kick your ass today. Sit out of 50 whenever you need. Right. And just expect it to be like, it's not going to feel good for a while, but you're here. And that's the important thing. And so just do whatever part of this workout feels right for you tonight. Sit out 50s whenever you need. Rest as required. It's fine. If you get in 1500, it's great. You did half the workout. Perfect. Come back again on Thursday. Right. Come back again on Tuesday. Come back. And then I'll tell them like it'll probably be at least 4 weeks before you feel even like a reasonable person in the water, like that you can move reasonably. Like, don't judge anything for 4 weeks. Come consistently for 4 weeks, then start to assess that, like how much better it's gotten. And they'll thank me for that usually because it's like I give them permission to like.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
maybe that's the key. Like from the coach, like the coach just has to give the permission. Like it's gonna suck. Suck it up. It's gonna suck for 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree
There's
with
no yeah.
I agree. I have an athlete that just came off some travel and caught a bug and as well as has had a back injury. And so they were saying, we did a run walk today and I thought it went great. 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, right? For 30 minutes. Perfect. But they were said, but I think the comment at the end was like, I'm really down in the depths. And I was like, I responded, yes, it might feel that way, combination of lots of things, but guarantee keep doing this, run walks every other day, doing your walks, right? Like and of course she's biking and swimming too, I guarantee in like a couple weeks you'll have a different assessment of how things are going to, because she's got a baseline fitness. It's just she's taking time off running, and and rightfully so, she needed to, and then coming off travel and having a bug. You don't judge anything when you're sick, right? Like if anything,
Mm.
don't work out if you're really sick because you might need to rest instead.
Yeah.
We've talked about
And
that
then
too.
coming off being sick, don't judge yourself.
Right.
Go
Right.
coming back.
So yeah, the
Yeah.
consistency and giving yourself that opportunity to work into, I don't think judgment is ever, I mean, judgment's part of our human nature, but right, trying to be objective about things. Like you can't immediately judge, if you're just returning from, yeah, a decade off swimming, right? But we all have it, right? Like I can't go to the track without thinking, oh, what did I used to do 400s in? Like, why does that matter? Because, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I am now 30 years past when I used how many, 12 by 400 was like the routine. Like every Thursday we did 12 by 400. What I do those on, does it matter now? No. So it's ingrained.
Can I,
Some things that
yeah.
are ingrained.
I'm going to share this story though, because like maybe it'll be inspirational for like someone. Like I've been swimming since I was 8. So I'm 52. What is that? 44 years now I'm swimming. Um, and at times like swam at a reasonably high level, at least for like triathletes, it was, reasonably high level, like any human, like taking time off and like had issues come up and I was dealing with the shoulder issue this fall and like whatever. Like there's times where it just, the motivation's not there, the training consistency isn't there, the training environment isn't there, the partners, whatever. And like somehow I wish I had like, I don't have like a magic formula for how to get back to a good place from that other than to recall your own like history, the training, like what you've done before. And but in a way where you're not only thinking about how fast you used to be, but more along the lines of like, the type of work that it took to get you to the place where it felt good. Right. And like no one magically ends up in a place where like just felt amazing. And I felt so good. Like you will never get to that point if you're not training
Yeah.
consistently for like quite some time. And so over the years, like what I figured out for myself, and like your formula may vary here, right? And depending on your experience and like who you are and all of that, like your formula might vary. For me, I have learned over the decades that if I want to be swimming in a way that makes me feel good about my swimming, I need to be swimming a minimum of 4 times a week and typically around K, right? And if I can put together like 3 or 4 weeks of minimum 12K, 4 times a week frequency, 5 is great. I mean, more is better, right? This isn't like the goal. This is the minimum baseline. But like when I'm doing that, then I can count on the fact that soon I'm going to start feeling good again. And so when I'm in a phase of my life where I'm only swimming 3 times a week, where the water's really cold and 2K is as much as I can manage, or pick a thing, right? Like that
Hmm.
is preventing me from hitting like my minimum weekly volume that I know it takes to feel good. Then when I'm in that phase, I'm like, I'm just not going to judge myself. Like I'm just going to stay in touch with the sport and I'm going to keep doing it so that when I'm in a place where I'm ready to start putting in more frequency, more volume, right?
Hmm.
Then it won't be such a steep hill to climb in order to get back there. Right. So like
Yeah.
I used to think, and so this is like, okay, younger Michelle versus like older Michelle. 'Cause like older Michelle can't take like months off. Younger Michelle tried to take months off
Hmm.
at a time. And I would just like suck it up and it'd be like, oh, a whole month of feeling shitty. And then like I would be back. That was like in my 30s. But like, and then in your 40s and then you're in your 50s.
Yeah.
Like you cannot,
You
there's
can't.
no I
Yeah.
take time. It's bad. So now like my off is like I'm only swimming twice a week for 2 or 3K each, right? But then that would be like so 5K, like that's not even half of what I need to
Hmm.
be doing in order to feel good. But that is so much better than zeros.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what I'm
Absolutely.
doing is I'm just giving myself grace. Like I know that I'm in a phase right now where I'm not doing the type of work or enough work that is going to put me in a place where I'm going to feel great. And there's like a level of acceptance that comes with that. Like it just
Right.
is what it is. And then and so I don't know, maybe it's like athletic maturity, a level of acceptance,
Hmm.
understanding. So I don't know how you get there, like if you're brand new. I mean, the stimulus for brand new athletes is so different than it is for,
Yeah.
those of us who've been doing it forever. But yeah, I mean, like, but now I'm in a place where, like, for the last couple of weeks, I've been swimming 4 times a week, you know, hitting around like that 12 to 14K, per week mark. And like, boom, there it is. Like, I'm starting to feel better and like right on
Right.
time. Like, that's what I would
Right.
expect. And it's like, if I
Right.
want to keep going, then I know the kind of work I have to do. And so I think that to expect, it's what is that phrase? It's like, you know, you can't be mad about the results you didn't get from the work that you didn't do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like,
Yeah.
so like when I'm not doing the work, I'm like, I'm not, I'm honest with myself about that. Right. Like, I'm honest about it and I accept it and it is what it is. And then I'm like, I'm not going to judge and get pissy about it because I know that what happens if I do that is I just stop training altogether and then it gets way worse. So it's like maintain this level of like non judgment in that and then just keeping persistent and wait and it comes back.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
So
anyway, that was a really
yeah.
long-winded answer to be
No,
like, how do
no.
we convince
That's great.
an athlete to like
The
get back
train to
into the race
train.
phase? But like
Yeah.
literally, there's just not a way to prepare to win or to race well if you don't put in the training to train phase like in a really serious way.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, you're thinking, oh boy, but I really, I want to do this half marathon or I want to do, maybe you've got, a marathon that you're looking at. It's not to say you can't do those things, right? Like, especially there are I've coached athletes that really are racing more for the community, right? For
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
does help it, and you know, like your athlete, it's like maybe I just need to put an Ironman on the schedule. I have seen it work for short stints, like short being a few months, right? 3, 4, 5, you know, to work to put a race on the schedule. For some people, that stress is motivating to get them out the door, right? Like, I still don't think it's healthy long term to use that as your motivator, right? To get out the door to do whatever it is. I think if you don't like riding your bike, right, then maybe you should consider not doing triathlon. If you don't, and I've had, I have a similar athlete that hated running, judged their run. And so for one year, I remember, in convincing this athlete, like, okay, well then let's not run. Like, why don't you do aqua bike, right? I mean, because if you really, it's again negative feedback, right? Like if you hate running and you always judge your run, you don't let, so it's just, then you don't run well, you don't run consistently, you skip your runs, or you run too hard and then you're broken down, you can't recover. So there's just this negative spiral. And so if you have to either accept that, okay, I really just don't like running, right? In this other situation, though, with this athlete I'm thinking of, it was just they needed to get out of the judgment space because then once they did that, they could start to run more consistently and enjoy running. And then, oh, what happened? Oh, their run got better. But I do think that for some folks, if you really don't like doing the thing, swimming, right? Or cycling or running, or, we're in the space of triathlon. If you don't like trail running, you probably shouldn't sign up for Leadville. Like, because why, right? Like, there is something to be said for maybe a one and done, like it is on a bucket list. You want to do an Ironman, you want to do a trail run, whatever. But I do think there's a certain amount of honing in on what do you enjoy doing because life is
Hmm.
very short. And so if you don't like doing the thing, you're probably not going to make improvement in the thing until you figure out what it is you need to do to like the thing, right? And if you really can't
Hmm.
figure out a way to like the thing, then you maybe should do the thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it sounds simple, but yet it's hard for people to wrap their heads around, I think. I think I see a lot of triathletes that really don't like a certain component of triathlon, whether it be the swim, the bike, or the run. I do think a lot of it stems from not actually a dislike of whatever modality it is, but it's the judgment they don't like how slow they are. And so they just constantly keep judging how slow they are or how weak they are or right without giving themselves the opportunity and space and capacity to just do the thing without judgment. And then they usually like the thing and then they see improvement. And then improvement is a really good feedback for our human brains
Hmm.
to then keep doing the thing. So
It's super
yeah,
motivating when you feel yourself getting better.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
you're like, oh, I'm getting better. And then you want to do
Want
it
to
more.
keep,
And then you
yeah,
get better.
yeah, yeah,
It's funny how that works. I think
yeah,
that was my point about like the swimming, like the way
yeah.
that like in the past, I've been through this process so many times, right? Like just season after season after season, I've been through this process. And the seasons where I judged myself for not being as fast as I used to be, right? When I was in the phase of like low volume, and then my speed would go away, my endurance would go away. Like I couldn't hold. I'm like, I used to be able to hold and I should be able to do this. And like, and I'm upset about it. It was miserable. Like it just
Yeah.
wasn't that much fun. And so I'm like, and I just knew, I'm like, that like for sure, judging myself on that stuff doesn't work. Right? It doesn't work. So I'm like, I'm just gonna keep swimming and I'm just gonna enjoy swimming and like whatever happens, happens. And like maybe I'll just sort of let go of some of my expectations. And it's so crazy how it works because as soon as you do that, you're like, and you just keep like checking the box and putting the time in, then all of a sudden you're like, oh hey, it felt great.
Yeah. And wow, look at how fast I went. And it's like, it just,
Like, oh my God,
yeah.
I did
Yeah.
it today.
Yeah.
I've coached a lot of athletes. I mean, like, so my BSC name, like the batshit crazy, largely came from the swim workouts that I used to give to athletes. I used to have very little, what's the word? I don't know, like sympathy, standing, of like people who didn't come from a swim background. It was
Right.
like, you didn't come from a swim background. I don't care. This is your workout. You know what I mean? I would just give them all like the hard swim workouts.
Meaty.
And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's genuinely where like the batshit crazy came from. So it's like these swim sets are batshit crazy. Like you're insane. But like, when they would do them regularly, then they would start to get better at it, and then they were like, wait. And I mean, the feedback that I used to get from athletes who would come to me without a swimming background, but then like, and then kill themselves in the pool for 3 months or so, and then like come out the other end of it, like, there are times where they're like, "I found myself actually looking forward to swimming today. Like, who am I? That's super weird." Or like, "I only had time to either run or swim today, and I chose swimming. Who am I?" Because they're like, this is not the athlete that I used to be, but now I'm like, I'm swimming enough that I actually enjoy it."
Feel
And I'm
good.
like, "Yeah, like that's how swimming works. Like,
It is.
that's how it works."
Yeah.
Like,
I
and
do.
it's
Yeah.
pretty much the only way it works.
Yeah. I think I will say I think cycling works like that as well to a certain extent.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
agree.
cycling
Yep.
volume is just you will get really fit, really, really, really fit. And I disagreed with Lucho. I know we probably talked about this in the past in the podcast on like run bike volume translating to run fitness and vice versa. He was more along the lines of that doesn't translate. I've not seen when I was very bike fit, I was also running very quick for the amount of run volume I was doing
Yeah, so
and
I
with a
can
high
I tell you what
yeah.
my theory
Yeah,
is on that?
go ahead.
I
Yeah.
think it's a yes and. I think it's both. I think it
Hmm.
depends on how good of a runner were you before. And if you
I
were
can
a
see
good
that.
runner
Yeah.
before, then your bike volume translates right over. If you were
Right.
not a good runner before, it doesn't like there's no magic transfer. Like, and that's just been like the pattern that I've seen
You've
of like
seen.
why it does work for some people. And like you were a good runner before. So for you, it works. It works for a lot of professional triathletes too. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and we've
Yeah.
seen this like at Kona or whatever, and they get injured. And so they didn't run for like 2 months leading up to the race, and they
Hmm.
were doing Ultra G, or they were just mostly riding their bike. And they're like, I don't know how this is going to go. We'll see. And then they get in the Ironman and they like totally crush it and get second overall with
Hmm.
the 240 marathon or whatever. And you're like, you can pull that off, but only if you've like had it before.
I would say also, though, and also that if you may find yourself in that category, if you're listening and you're like, yeah, well, I'm not a good runner, so therefore I'm not going to bike, I'm going to run more. I would say before you do that, fix your run, take Michelle's flow rope course, because I've also seen athletes that are not natural runners try to take that approach and it's just injured, injured, injured,
Yep.
injured. And so,
Yep.
and then they're out, right? Like they can't even
Yes.
swim. Well, they might be able to swim and bike, but they're not going to be doing their A race because they're injured. So I would say before taking the approach of like, well, okay, I could classify myself as not a natural runner or a good runner, therefore I'm going to run more. Okay, well, make sure. I only say you can run more if you can stay injury free, and I also think that's very challenging for most triathletes and ultra runners and runners in general. So that's my
Yeah.
my two
Yeah.
cents.
If you have good movement
Yeah,
patterns and like good
yeah,
mechanics, good biomechanics as you're running, and like your weight is in balance, and
right.
you're, yeah,
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah,
So
for sure.
where I was going with that is actually if you're coming back from a time away or from an injury in your primarily runner, or you are looking to improve your run, you should not take the more, consistency. Well, you should take consistency, but make sure that it's appropriately delved out in terms of very easy using a run walk protocol, right? Like walking is good for your lower leg strength. It's good for your metabolic health. and it keeps the stress lower on your body so that then you can again do it again tomorrow or the next day without feeling super fatigued. I one runner who is primarily she used to be a triathlete, but she's mostly focused on trails, and she is coming off of an injury, and she modified the schedule to do. I had a run on the schedule, easy run, including walk breaks if you need, and then she did that, and then she did another run, and then she moved her long run up, so she ended up running 3 days in a row, and I'm like, okay, and she's like, yeah, I'm feeling, I'm like, it's not that I don't think you can do this. It's that you're moving into risky territory, right? Like you're not yet at a state. And I know that's kind of tough. It's tough love, right? To say like, and unfortunately, I don't think I don't know if she's going to ever listen to this podcast or not, but uh, when we were running last year to get her prepped for ultra run type of event, she did not stay injury free. And so there is a risk associated there. And so you have to take that. You might be feeling really good, but you want to continue to feel really good so you can do the thing the next day and the next day and recover really well. So
Hmm.
that's the caveat with running and why I don't typically prescribe everyday runs unless the athlete has proven over usually a long period of time that they can handle everyday runs. Usually it's run, bike, run, walk if they're not a cyclist or something else. I don't care what else. You can go rock
Hmm.
climbing or kickboxing or whatever. But
Hmm.
running, you see, even at the elite level, it's pretty hard on the body. Uh, so
I'm
yeah,
with you. I'm totally with you on that. Like before I will write like 3 runs in a row for an athlete, like I have to have seen that athlete run consistently injury free for
for
quite
a
some
long,
time,
yeah,
like at a
yeah,
reasonably high level. Like you're running,
yeah,
and so it's totally possible to run 6 days a week. I mean, high level runners do it. I mean, they run twice a
yeah,
day. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's possible, but it's just the key is to build up to the adaptations,
right,
and it's mostly tendons that we're concerned
right,
about there.
right,
It's not like, like you'll take a swimmer. This was me when I came from swimming and I started running. And like I had the cardiovascular fitness to go run 10 miles, but like my tendons did not like that.
right,
It's
right,
like they weren't.
right,
And so like the idea that I'm sure you take the same, but like the training philosophy that I go by is that we proceed at the level of the weakest link. And with running development, the weakest link is going to be the tendon. So we are developing you at the pace of your tendon capacity, not muscular, because I don't care, your muscles aren't sore, you know what I mean? And your heart is fine and you feel like you can keep going, but if your Achilles is pissed off or your patella tendons are mad or you have tendon issues are,
which is,
yeah,
yeah,
that's the
plantar
level that we develop
fasciitis.
at. Yeah.
Achilles and
And like,
plantar fasciitis,
and
yeah.
like the answer is like, it's having 48 hours of rest for those tendons in between, like they just take longer to recover. And so like, so that's how we do it. But just know that it can happen. I mean, you can absolutely build to the point where you can run 3 or 4 days in a
Yeah,
row. If
right,
you like put the
yeah,
years in and do that, the human body will adapt to do it and it'll be fine. I feel like we've gotten like way off topic with our
yeah.
like train
Well
to race.
the
We
it
just keep
brings
going back.
I was actually
It's such a
gonna
like a narrow thing, and like we just spend so much time. Like all of our training is training to train, and so even our conversation here is back to be like, you have to be able to do this first before. But let's
well,
let's spend the next like 15 minutes just talking about like people who are they've done all the work. They're like, Nikki, Michelle, I did all the work. Like I've done the train to train.
okay,
Teach me what training to race looks like. So like let's talk to those athletes now. It's like you did it. Like you're a green calendar. You're
which
check the
is
box. You've been sleeping well. You've been feeling well. You are 8 weeks out from your main race, right? Like what's training look like now?
from well, I'm trying to think like when's the last time I had this situation? It's probably been years. So I'll have to like jog my memory, right? Because it's a rarity. Sorry guys. And even if you think you're in this
I
category, I'd
know.
probably be like, no. Um, so yes, but okay, let's in the hypothetical
Yeah.
fantasy world.
It happens, Nikki. There are some people who train consistently. There
That's
are
true.
some.
I'm sure. Well, Tia, right? And Tia just had a great race.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have, yeah, you definitely have.
Yeah. Tia
I'm not
crushed
just,
it.
yeah, I have had athletes in the past. It's just been a while. I would say post COVID, things have been pretty rough for a lot of the athletes that I've worked. And I've worked with these athletes since like 2013, most of my athletes. So it's just been for whatever reason and valid reasons, like kind of tough, right? From a training consistency perspective. So jogging my memory though to what it used to look like, I think, yeah, for me, the biggest thing is like dialing in on what will you be able to hold, right, for the race. Because a lot of times we want to start to think about what's the power output, what's versus the heart rate. And for me, I am still using heart rate. Well, I will always default to heart rate for long course races 70.3 and above, 70.3, depending on the athlete's capabilities, maybe a little bit less so. I give people more free rein when they have done a really solid train to train. I've worked with them for a while, and they've proven that they can totally race without the metrics. And I have a couple that can do that, and they do it very well. They've also been doing triathlon for 2 decades, right? So it's like, and they've gone to Kona and they've done all the, world champ races. So I feel like with those athletes, if they are honed in, like they still will have data on their watch, right? But they're usually racing off of fields. But we are honing in on, heart rates versus, power or pace a little bit more, but not the whole long run, right? We're gonna maybe sprinkle it in. So training to race, training to win phase for me, it's getting much more, like, I would say, real with, okay, what are we looking to do on race day? It's when I do
Hmm.
allow athletes to start to talk about, this is what I kind of want. Okay, well, let's try. Like, let's see. Like, can we hold 9-minute pace off of a 5-hour bike ride for even 20
Hmm.
minutes? After some load, right? Like, we're not well rested, because that actually mimics Ironman a little bit better, right? Because you're actually riding for, you swum, and now you've ridden for whatever, 5-6 hours, maybe a little bit longer, and you're thinking, I'd like to, break 4 hours for the marathon. What does that feel like? Right. So I allow a little bit more, because usually I don't allow athletes to talk about pace and power unless it's with respect to heart rate or with respect to how they feel, because I try to remove that judgment out of the sessions. Like, let me take care of that. You guys take care of how you're feeling, how you're recovering, life stress, getting your training in consistently. So yeah, it is. And sometimes that training to race phase does, I don't want to say put a damper, but like, if the expectations from the athlete are very far removed from what they're showing in training, it's not to say it can't happen on race day, but we have to be, I give very realistic, with a slight push, right? A little bit challenging race plans. I don't know how you develop your race plans with your athletes, but I always give, pace, power, heart rate, fueling, and then what if it goes wrong? What do we do? Right? Like, the problem solving component of long course, but without a pie in the sky expectations, because I often feel that just sets athletes up for going too hard early on and blowing up. So yeah, so a
Yeah.
lot of race specificity. Mm. And then, yeah, but I have some other thoughts too. And what sometimes, if the athlete is very fit, like some key workouts that are definitely challenging and definitely will provide some guidance on what race day might look like. Sort of not fail set for sure. And I don't do fail sessions in that sort of lead up, because I don't think that's good for a mental, the mental game, right? I give challenging sessions that are achievable at a stretch, right? Like, that will leave a little bit of an imprint, but we are very much in line with what we think capabilities might be on race day. Fail sets, I don't really think are very useful for that time period. If people, yeah, I don't even know if I totally. Fail sets can be fine for some athletes that maybe are new or some, I don't know, or that are exploring, like, really pushing their range of capacities and capabilities. But I've also seen some coaches give fail sets that I think are just stupid. Sorry, I'm just gonna,
Same. Yeah.
so yeah,
I don't,
yeah,
I mean, yeah. And my one-on-one athletes, I don't think I've ever given a one-on-one athlete a workout that I didn't think they could do.
yeah,
I don't think I've
yeah.
ever done it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there'll be times I'll be like, all right, put your big girl pants on. Like, this is going to be hard, and
Right,
you're going to have
right,
to feel this right, and you're going to have to be, and like really on it in order to make it. But I
right,
don't know that I've ever like, and I'm not saying I've never had an athlete fail a workout. Like, they totally have
right.
if they weren't in like the state that I thought they were going to be in order to do it. But as far as like me on purpose giving a workout that I didn't think they could do, I've never done that.
Yeah, I don't. I can't remember. I
I
won't say
will
never,
sometimes like
but
give
like,
freedom, like when it's an athlete that I've been working with for a while, and like well, and I even take that back because sometimes it's a way that I will like get to know them. So like I haven't been working with you that long, and I just want to like see what you do with this, and so I'll give them a
mhm,
run. Like, I gave this run to a couple athletes this week, like run 8 miles, descending in sets of 2 miles at a time. Right? And then I gave no other, like, I didn't build the workout out. I didn't give heart rate. I didn't give anything. Like, I'm like, I just want to see what you do with this right now. Like, so 2 miles easy, 2 miles a little quicker, 2 miles a little quicker, 2 miles like stronger than that. And then the specific instructions were if you needed to run another mile and do it faster, you still could, right? So this is not
Mhm.
a max effort finish.
Right.
But like I just want to see, and a lot of that is like the reason that I do it that way is because like I kind of want to see like what is this athlete going to do when I let him off the leash for a little bit, right? So like
Mhm.
we've been like I've had you on a leash for a little while, like
Mhm.
I I want to see what they do. They are probably curious about like what they can do. Like maybe we both learn something from like how like could they hold it or not? Did they get too aggressive at mile 5 and then they thought they had fitness that they didn't, or are they like they how well do they understand like their own ability to like pace and learn? Because I mean, 8 miles descend in sets of two
Mhm.
is a challenging session. And
Mhm.
you have to
Mhm.
have like the baseline level of fitness you have to have in order to pull that one off in a way that you like finish and feel good about it is pretty high. But there were a couple athletes that I gave that workout to this week and I'm using it.
Yeah,
I didn't
as
tell
a
them I'm using it as a benchmark, but you know, like for me, it's like a check-in. Like I want to see how they are. And so, you know,
Mhm.
they may fail that workout if they push too hard at mile 6
Yeah.
and then they don't
Yeah.
have 2 more miles fast. So like that, but it wouldn't be because I was like, you need to hold 7:20 pace at the end and then they
Right.
couldn't do
Right.
it. Like I don't ever give a pace that I think they can't do. But there are times where I'm like, just like let it fly and see what happens,
Yeah.
and it's a learning experience. I think that's actually a really good way to learn, right? And
Oh, yeah.
and
Mhm.
I love progression, like
Yeah, I do a lot of
I like
progression
to
runs.
progress
Yeah.
everything. I just
Yeah,
feel like it's good. Yeah,
it is.
for me, a training to race phase is like what I said in the beginning, like where I I'll be very specific about the key workouts that we're giving. Sometimes I'm giving a specific pace, but a lot of times it's like, you know, going by feel, like trying to help the athlete learn what
Mhm.
this feels like, right? But what happens is that the intervals start to get long enough that if you screw
Mhm.
that up, like if you get too greedy, then you know, and you're trying to do, you know, like 3 times 18 minutes or something on the bike,
Mhm.
and you know, and your first two were you know too hard, and you can't hold it. Like that's learning. Good,
Yeah.
you learn something there about like how hard you can push. And then in between there, what I do is like I'll tend to cut out a lot of the fluff. Right.
Mm.
So like if
Mhm.
there's, you know, the frequency trot runs that we do, or just like here's an aerobic spin on the bike, you just,
Mhm.
you know, get on, find something interesting to watch and spin, you know, with your heart rate 125 for an hour and a half or whatever. Like I don't do like that kind of stuff largely goes away um, in favor of rest instead, so that
Mhm.
you can be more fresh for the key sessions that you do. So recovery becomes like a bigger piece of it because like I want them to feel more on
Mhm.
the key day. And then like what you talked about before, like the fueling piece, I will say race day fueling, have that worked out. Tell me what you're doing. Like, let's
Yeah.
go over it. Like what products are you using? And I will then question them, like how many grams of carbs are in the
Mhm.
thing. And I still have a lot of athletes still go by calories. And like, I'm trying to get them like, how many grams of carbs? I don't know. Read
Mhm.
the label and find out. Right. So like, we'll do that. And then of course for me, I mean, this won't surprise you at all, but like I'm super into them trying to figure out and understand the mindset that they need to take into the race. 'Cause it's not the same for everybody, right? Like some people do really well racing angry, right?
Mm.
With a
Mhm.
chip on their shoulder, and like they'll pull it off in an amazing way. Some people need to race like with joy and low expectations and they surprise themselves, and like that's how they get the best out of
Mhm.
themselves. Some people are like, I gotta beat her. You know, I don't think that's not my preferred way. And I don't like encourage people to race like that, you know. But like for there are occasions and there are people for whom that approach works.
Mhm.
I'm motivated
Yeah.
to like beat her. I feel like when it doesn't work out, it really doesn't go well, and then we have to like
Yeah.
take a big step
That's that.
back and
Yeah.
review
Yeah.
that like you know that approach. But again, like it's there's a lot of lessons that I will let an athlete learn on their own, right? Like I'll try to like guide them in a certain way. And if they believe, if they're like, no, Michelle, and I've had athletes that I've worked with long enough that they will push back on me and be like, no, Michelle, like that approach that you have of like racing with joy and love, like that's not for me. Like I need to race with a chip on my shoulder and I need to race angry and I need to, and like while I genuinely don't believe that that's like the best long-term strategy really for anyone. I do acknowledge that it works for some people like in some periods and like in this time of your life or like in that specific race scenario. And so I don't mandate that they do it my way, but I'll help them examine what they're doing for themselves, and then,
Yeah.
like, afterward, whether it worked or not, let's examine it now.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yeah.
how was that? Like, is there anything you would change about the way that you approach that race?
Mhm.
But, in my mind, I feel like for most athletes, the mindset that tends to work best is one that is, like, it's happy, like, the happy, healthy, and excited to race. Like, those are the 3.
Mhm.
Like, if you could get there, you're happy, you're healthy, you're excited to race, the likelihood of you having a good day are really high.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, it's like it
Yeah.
sounds simple. I mean, it's hard to actually achieve that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but,
That's
like, yeah, that
something.
that mindset
Yeah.
is, helpful.
Yeah, it is. I think I can't remember if we've talked about this before or not, but it's the mindset piece is something that for when I was a younger coach, I didn't really um tackle that much or didn't talk about because I had this assumption that everyone raced like I did, which is, you know,
They
um
don't.
no, I know. Well, and when I finally when people would open up and be like, "Well, this is what I thought," I was like, "What do you think about during?" Because for our listeners, I don't even remember having thoughts in any race. Like, there's like my brain is focused on point. It's like Zen. Like I love racing for that component because I can just block out all the noise. All I have to do is focus on fueling, right? Like going as hard as I possibly can in the moment so that I can keep going hard for the rest, like just crossing the finish line as fast as possible. And there's no judgment. There's no thoughts of like, oh, pace and this. And I mean, like, no, I don't know. And I was that way in soccer too. I am able to get in the moment and stay in the moment for, 13 hours or 12 hours or 10 and a half hours or whatever my Ironman time was, which is just like bliss for me. I don't know. I love it. So I never really struggled with like so what I then heard is like athletes really struggle with a lot of negativity, a lot of judgment, a lot of I can't this, that, I'm too slow, I'm too whatever. And so that led me down the path of trying to hone in on, yeah, what are some techniques to be helpful for athletes? Because I didn't have that personal experience. I'm not going to say my mindset has always is that way outside of racing. Like as soon as I cross the line, it's judgment from here to, Timbuktu. But in the moment I'm able
Mm.
to turn it off. I don't know why, right? It's just how I am. But learning that athletes don't race like that, I was like, "Oh, okay, well, let's try to work on that." But what people need is so different, I think. I don't encourage so the whole positivity thing that you're talking about, when coaches tried to put that like tell me to do that, I was like, "What? That's weird,"
Yeah,
right? I try to just guide people. For some people it might work, and
it
that's
does. No,
awesome.
it
And it
totally it works for a lot of people, but, like, yeah, but not for everyone.
Right. I tend to be more of a zen, like just nothing. There's a nothingness, right? That is a freedom for me. And so I try, especially for athletes that tend to be more on the negative spectrum of how their race mentality goes. Especially internal judgment, right? Like not necessarily, yeah, the stories are telling them about why they can't run the marathon off the bike. Then I try to instead of having them think positively or try to have positive mantras or whatever, I try to just say, like, note the judgment and say, thank you, brain, right, for that judgment. I don't need it. Let it go. I think they might eventually be able to get to the more positive joy, gratitude. I think gratitude is actually one, though, that does work for a lot of people because it's not
Totally does.
necessarily joy and happiness but it's when we can shift our minds to gratitude. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for my family that's supporting me, whatever gratitude you can see in the moment. It usually lessens the amount of negativity you might be telling yourself about your capabilities in the moment.
Well,
And
and it
then,
actually
yeah,
shifts, like, your
yeah,
internal chemistry in a way
right,
that allows you to actually perform better. Like,
right.
genuinely,
It
like, it
does. Yeah,
shifts stress hormones that are, like,
right.
in your body. So
And
it's like
then,
it's very real. It's
yeah,
not like a woo woo. I used
yeah,
to think that it was
yeah,
all woo woo shit too, and I'm like, I'm not into woo woo any of that. Like, but now I understand that like it's
yeah,
not that. It's something
right.
else.
Yeah. But I will also say that the key thing that I will tell athletes that I'm working with when we're doing our pre-race and mindset is like a lot of times when we're low on calories or carbs,
Mhm.
whatever, sugar, your
Mhm.
mindset goes negative. So when you start having
Mhm.
negative thoughts, you need to put a cookie in your
Mhm.
mouth because
Mhm.
that will change your perspective. And almost
Mhm.
99% of the time, that's the situation. When you start to have negativity, it's because you're low on
Mhm.
calories. So
Yep.
that's the issue. And then say, have your snack and then look around and bring back gratitude back in. So, yeah. a lot of
I've
mine,
said the
but
same
yeah,
thing. I'm like,
yeah,
as soon as you have that thought that like, this is stupid. I don't care about
right,
this. Like, this is so dumb. I'm like, the second that you have that thought, like that's your brain trying to protect you because it's like, it's calculating like how, like, what's my glycogen levels here? And like, it starts going low. And it's like, we got to shut this shit down.
right,
Like you have to. So yeah,
yeah.
as soon as you have a thought about like, this is dumb, like drink a Coke or have some sugar, like immediately, and then like watch it come back around. And it like almost always does.
Yeah. Same in training, right? Like if you're having a bad
Hmm.
training ride, it's
Hmm.
common on long rides, long runs. It's not your fitness. It's not anything about you. It's that you're low on calories. And if you eat something, you'll feel different within probably 20 minutes. So yeah, I feel like taper could be an entire podcast episode because there's so much
Yeah.
nuance.
Maybe we'll do that next time
Maybe
because we're
yeah,
kind of running long here. I feel
we
like we
are.
need to
We
cut
are.
this off.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you can take some pieces of wisdom from our maybe convoluted little bit a little
Hmm.
bit non sequitur dialogue here about training to race, but I think key, yeah, don't rush the process. I think that's the key, right? Like don't rush the process, figuring out how you're going to train and what you're training for. Maybe there's a little bit of long-term vision of like, are you training for a 5K or are you training for an ultra, right? Setting the stage for that. And then getting into your groove of training to train. And maybe you do have a race on the calendar, but try to not let race expectations come in right to everyday sessions. Give yourself space to develop the capacity to then do a true training to race phase where you do start to let in some of those desires you might have for your race outcomes. Ultimately, I'm still going to always default to the process. The process will deliver the outcomes of your race, but if you start to
Always.
want to explore, right, your race day capabilities, that's the time to maybe do it in that, you know, 6 to 8 weeks ideally. And if you're maybe, long course, I would prefer maybe a little bit longer, especially if you've got crazy. And the travel pre-race, like that's just an
Like
aside.
we can't even start talking
We
about
can't
that
even
now.
start talking about that, but like how many athletes are like, oh, I'm gonna do this big A race, but I've got travel 2 or 3 weeks before around the world.
Yeah.
Okay, we can try. We can try to navigate that, but wow.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah. With
next
you.
time. Next
Next
time,
time. Yeah, we'll talk about that
Saber.
next time.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else you want to add to my debrief there on
No,
training to
that's
race?
it.
Okay. All right. Good to
I'm all
chat with you,
talked out.
Michelle. Always. We will be back with taper magic next time.
Yeah, next time.
Okay.
Aloha.